Why does your brain suddenly turn into a trial court at 2 in the morning, prosecuting you for every mistake you've made since childhood? Why is it that a small awkward comment you made at lunch becomes by midnight evidence of your complete social incompetence? And why does the silence of night feel less like peace and more like an interrogation room where your mind refuses to let you off the hook? If you've ever found yourself wide awake at 3 in the morning, replaying conversations from 5 years ago or constructing elaborate disaster scenarios about tomorrow's presentation, you're not alone. Research suggests that nearly 70% of people experience some form of nighttime overthinking, and what's even more fascinating is that this phenomenon reveals something profound about human psychology that Carl Jung spent decades trying to help us understand. Your nighttime overthinking is not a malfunction. It is a message. Your unconscious mind, the part of you that you've been ignoring all day while wearing your professional mask and managing your responsibilities, is finally demanding to be heard. And it has chosen the only time you're actually quiet enough to listen. The darkness and silence of night strip away all the distractions we use to avoid ourselves, and what emerges in that vulnerable space is often uncomfortable, but always meaningful. Let me paint you a picture you probably know too well. You've had a perfectly normal day. You went to work, had some meetings, exchanged pleasantries with colleagues, ate dinner, watched something mindless on television, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. Your body is tired. You should sleep. But then somewhere around 2 in the morning, your eyes snap open. And within seconds, your brain begins its nightly performance of what I call the anxiety variety show. Every embarrassing moment, every unresolved conflict, every looming deadline, and every existential question you've successfully avoided during daylight hours comes rushing in like uninvited guests to a party you didn't want to host. This is what I call the silence paradox, and it affects the vast majority of people who overthink at night. During the day, we are bombarded with external stimulation. Phone notifications, email alerts, conversations, background noise, music, the demands of work, the needs of others. Our attention is constantly pulled outward toward the world and its endless requirements. This external noise serves a function beyond just keeping us informed or entertained. It acts as a buffer between us and our internal world. It keeps us from having to face the thoughts and feelings we'd rather not deal with. But night is different. When you turn off your phone, when the emails stop coming, when Netflix finally asks if you're still watching and you don't have the energy to click yes again, something happens. The external noise disappears and suddenly there's a vacuum. And your brain, which has been busy all day responding to external demands, now turns its considerable processing power inward. It starts scanning for threats, reviewing past events for missed dangers, and trying to predict future problems. This is not a design flaw. It's actually an evolutionary feature that kept our ancestors alive by reviewing the day's events and planning for tomorrow's challenges. The problem is that in the modern world, this review process goes haywire. Here's where it gets particularly cruel. Your brain doesn't replay your successes or the moments where you handled things well. No, it pulls up what I call the social cringe reel. Remember that meeting 3 years ago where you mispronounced a word and someone corrected you? Your nighttime brain treats that like it was a nationally televised humiliation. That time you sent a text that was slightly awkward and the person took an hour to respond. At 2 in the morning, your brain constructs an elaborate narrative where that person thinks you're a complete weirdo and has told everyone they know to avoid you. I worked with a client, let's call her Sarah, who would regularly wake up at 3 in the morning replaying a presentation she gave at work where she accidentally called her boss by the wrong name. This happened 6 months before she came to see me, but her brain was still prosecuting the case every single night. She would lie in bed, reliving the moment, imagining all her colleagues laughing about it, constructing entire scenarios where this one mistake defined her entire professional reputation. The reality? Her boss had laughed it off immediately. No one else even remembered it, and her work performance had been excellent. But none of that mattered to her nighttime brain, which had decided this was evidence of some fundamental unworthiness. Then there's the what-if rabbit hole, perhaps the most vicious form of nighttime overthinking. This is where your brain takes a small current concern and extrapolates it into a catastrophic future. You sent an email during the day with a minor typo. During daylight hours, you might notice it and think, oops, and move on. But at midnight, that typo becomes the first domino in an elaborate disaster sequence. You imagine your boss reading that email and concluding you're careless. Then you imagine getting passed over for a promotion because of it. Then you're imagining getting fired, then losing your home, then ending up alone and destitute because of one misplaced comma in an email about a routine meeting. And here's the thing. In the moment, at 3 in the morning, this catastrophic sequence feels completely logical and inevitable. Now let's dive into why this happens from a psychological perspective, because Carl Jung understood something about the human mind that most people never consciously realize. Jung spent decades studying the unconscious mind, and one of his most important discoveries was the concept of the shadow. The shadow is not some evil part of you. It's simply all the aspects of yourself that you've had to repress, deny, or hide in order to function in society and maintain your self-image. It's the anger you couldn't express at work. It's the vulnerability you couldn't show because you needed to appear strong. It's the desires and fears and insecurities that don't fit with the image you're trying to project. During the day, you're busy managing what Jung called the persona. This is the mask you wear, the socially acceptable version of yourself that you present to the world. Your persona is professional, competent, friendly, put together. It smiles at colleagues you don't particularly like. It nods along in meetings even when you disagree. It says, "I'm fine," when someone asks how you are, even if you're struggling. And maintaining this persona takes enormous psychological energy. You're constantly monitoring yourself, editing your responses, managing impressions, suppressing reactions that wouldn't be appropriate. This is exhausting, and it creates what I call persona fatigue. By the end of the day, you're depleted from all this self-monitoring and image management. You go to bed, your conscious defenses weaken, and suddenly all that repressed material, all the thoughts and feelings you pushed down during the day, comes flooding back. This is the shadow at your bedside, demanding the audience you denied it for the past 16 hours. Jung said something that has become almost famous in psychological circles. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What he meant is that all these repressed thoughts and feelings don't just disappear because you ignore them. They accumulate in the unconscious, gaining power and energy, and they will find a way to make themselves known. For many people, nighttime overthinking is precisely this process. Your shadow, all the parts of yourself you've been ignoring, finally gets its moment to speak, and it speaks through anxiety, through rumination, through the endless mental loops that keep you awake. But here's where Jung's perspective becomes truly transformative. He didn't view this nighttime anxiety as an enemy to be defeated or a malfunction to be fixed. He saw it as a messenger. Your unconscious is trying to communicate something important to you. That anxiety about your job performance might be telling you that you're in a role that doesn't align with your authentic values. That social cringe reel might be highlighting a genuine need to address how you communicate, or a wound around belonging that needs attention. The catastrophic thinking might be pointing to a real issue around security or control that you haven't consciously acknowledged. Jung called the process of listening to these messages and integrating what the unconscious is trying to tell you individuation. It's the journey toward becoming whole by bringing into consciousness all the parts of yourself you've been denying. And nighttime overthinking, as miserable as it feels, is actually an invitation to this process. Now let's talk about the specific modern triggers that turbocharge this nighttime overthinking. We live in an era that Jung could never have imagined, where we carry devices that give us instant access to curated highlight reels of everyone else's life. And this creates what I call the comparison trap, which is absolutely devastating to our psychological well-being, especially at night. You're lying in bed, unable to sleep, so you pick up your phone. You open Instagram and you see your former college roommate posting pictures from their vacation in Bali. You scroll to LinkedIn and see an announcement that someone who graduated the same year as you just got promoted to vice president. You see someone else posting about their new house, their engagement, their startup that just got funded. And suddenly, you're not just overthinking your own life. You're putting yourself on trial in comparison to everyone else. Why haven't you achieved as much? Why aren't you as successful, as happy, as accomplished? What's wrong with you? This comparison triggers something Jung would recognize immediately. It activates what he called the inferior function, the part of your psyche that feels inadequate compared to others. And your nighttime brain, already in an anxious state, seizes on this and runs with it. It constructs elaborate narratives about your failure, your wasted potential, your disappointing trajectory. And the cruel irony is that you're comparing your inner reality with all its doubts and struggles to everyone else's carefully curated external image. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, and you will always lose that comparison. There's also what I call unfinished emotional business, and this is crucial to understand. You don't actually overthink everything. You overthink the things you haven't resolved. That conversation with your partner where you said you were fine, but you weren't really fine. Your brain will replay that at midnight. The email from your boss that had a slightly critical tone that you didn't address, that will come back at 2 in the morning. The decision you've been avoiding about whether to stay in your current career or pursue something different, that will wake you up at 3. Your conscious mind can push these things aside during the day because you're busy and distracted. But your unconscious mind knows these things are unresolved and it's trying to get you to address them. The overthinking is not random. It's targeted at precisely the areas where you need to take action, have a difficult conversation, or make a decision you've been avoiding. And then there's decision fatigue, which is particularly relevant in our modern world. Every single day you make thousands of tiny decisions. What to wear, what to eat, which emails to respond to first, whether to attend that meeting, how to phrase that text message, whether to go to the gym or rest. Each decision depletes your mental resources slightly. By evening, you're running on empty. And this is when small decisions become disproportionately stressful. I had a client, we'll call him Michael, who would have full-blown anxiety spirals at midnight about what to order for lunch the next day. This sounds absurd, but here's what was really happening. The lunch decision was standing in for much bigger, scarier decisions he was avoiding about his relationship and his career. His unconscious was using this trivial decision as a proxy for the real questions. Am I in the right relationship? Am I living the life I want? These were too big and scary to confront directly, so they manifested as obsessive overthinking about whether to get a sandwich or a salad. There's a particular cruelty to nighttime overthinking that we need to examine. During the day, you might have a thought like, I could have handled that better, and it's a reasonable, objective assessment. But at 3 in the morning, that same thought transforms into I'm a complete failure who ruins everything. The tone shifts from observation to prosecution, from evaluation to condemnation. You become what I call your own internal judge, and it's the harshest judge you'll ever encounter. Jung understood this as the negative aspect of what he called the superego, the internal voice that has absorbed all the criticism, expectations, and standards you've encountered throughout your life. During the day, your rational mind can moderate this voice. But at night, when your defenses are down, this internal judge goes into overdrive. It doesn't just point out mistakes, it uses those mistakes as evidence of fundamental unworthiness. It doesn't just note areas for improvement, it declares you irredeemably flawed. And here's what makes nighttime particularly treacherous. There's a phenomenon that psychologists call nighttime distortion, where problems genuinely appear larger and more insurmountable in the dark. That work challenge that seemed manageable at 10 in the morning becomes a career-ending crisis at 3 in the morning. That mild disagreement with your partner that you barely thought about during the day becomes evidence of a failing relationship at midnight. This isn't just your imagination. Your brain's threat assessment system is more active at night, your cortisol levels fluctuate, and your ability to maintain perspective is genuinely impaired when you're tired and in the dark. I've seen this countless times. People will call me in distress at midnight, convinced their life is falling apart, listing problems that seem absolutely catastrophic. Then they'll contact me the next morning and say, I don't know what I was so worried about. It doesn't seem that bad now. The problems didn't change. The time of day changed, and with it their capacity for realistic assessment. Underneath all of this overthinking is usually a desperate need for control. Jung recognized that anxiety often emerges when we're trying to control things that are fundamentally uncontrollable. You overthink that conversation because you're trying to retroactively control how it went, to find the perfect thing you could have said. You catastrophize about the future because you're trying to prepare for and control every possible outcome. You replay social interactions because you're trying to control others' perceptions of you. But life is inherently uncertain. People are unpredictable. The future cannot be known or controlled. And your nighttime overthinking is a failed attempt to impose certainty on an uncertain world. It creates the illusion that if you just think about it enough, analyze it enough, worry about it enough, you'll somehow be able to control the outcome. But you won't. All you'll do is exhaust yourself. So how do we move from this exhausting cycle of overthinking to something healthier? Jung's entire life work was aimed at this question, at how we integrate the unconscious material that's causing us distress. And while his full process of individuation is complex, there are practical techniques we can extract that specifically address nighttime overthinking. The first and perhaps most powerful is something Jung would absolutely endorse: making the shadow visible through what I call brain dumping, though Jung called it active imagination and journaling. Here's what you do. Keep a journal by your bed. When you wake up at 2 in the morning with your mind racing, don't just lie there letting the thoughts spiral. Turn on a light, open the journal, and write everything down. Every worry, every replay, every catastrophic scenario, every self-criticism. Write it all down exactly as it appears in your mind without editing or judging. What happens when you do this is remarkable. First, you're externalizing the thoughts, getting them out of your head and onto paper where they become finite and manageable rather than infinite and overwhelming. Second, you're making the unconscious conscious, which is exactly what Jung said was necessary for these patterns to lose their power over you. The act of writing forces you to slow down and examine the thoughts rather than just being swept along by them. And often when you see your thoughts on paper, you immediately recognize how distorted they are. That catastrophic scenario doesn't look nearly as logical when you write it out step by step. Jung also developed a more advanced technique that I'm going to give you in a simplified, practical form. Instead of fighting your anxious thoughts or trying to suppress them, try talking to them. I know this sounds strange, but stay with me. When that worried thought appears, when that internal prosecutor starts its case against you, instead of arguing with it or trying to push it away, ask it a question. Speak to it like it's a separate entity that's trying to communicate something. Ask it, what are you actually afraid of? What are you trying to protect me from? This is a light version of what Jung called active imagination, a process of engaging with unconscious material as if it were a character in a dialogue. What you'll often discover is that underneath the seemingly irrational anxiety is actually a legitimate fear or need. That voice telling you you're going to fail at work might really be saying, I'm afraid of not being valued, or I need more recognition for my efforts. That spiral about social interaction might really be communicating, I have a deep need for belonging, and I'm afraid of rejection. When you can identify the underlying need or fear, you can address it directly rather than just fighting with the surface symptoms. Here's another practical technique that I've found incredibly effective with clients. I call it the so what technique, and it's a way to de-escalate your brain's worst-case scenarios by following them all the way to their conclusion. Your brain tells you that typo in your email is going to get you fired. Okay, so what? So I get fired. So what happens then? I'd have to find a new job. And if I can't find a new job, I'd have to use my savings for a while. And if my savings run out, I'd have to move to a cheaper place or ask family for help. And if that doesn't work, I'd figure something out because humans are remarkably resourceful and people survive job loss all the time. What this technique does is expose the catastrophic thinking for what it is, an incomplete story that stops right at the scariest point. Your brain is showing you the first domino falling and telling you that means complete destruction. But when you actually follow the chain all the way through, you usually discover that even the worst-case scenario is survivable and often quite unlikely. You also usually discover that you've been catastrophizing about something that has about 15 steps between where you are now and actual disaster, and you're treating it like those 15 steps are inevitable when they're not. Before we conclude, I want to invite you to join this community of people who are serious about understanding themselves at a deeper level. If this exploration of Jungian psychology and the hidden meanings in your nighttime anxiety has resonated with you, if you're someone who wants to move from being controlled by your unconscious patterns to consciously integrating them, then subscribe to this channel right now. Click that notification bell because this is not your typical surface-level psychology content. We're diving into the profound work of Carl Jung and other depth psychologists, exploring the real mechanisms of human consciousness and giving you practical tools for genuine transformation. Share this video with someone who lies awake at night overthinking. Send it to that friend who's always texting you at 2 in the morning worried about something. This understanding that their anxiety is not a malfunction but a message can be genuinely life-changing. And leave a comment sharing your own experience with nighttime overthinking. What are the recurring themes that show up for you? Have you discovered what your unconscious might be trying to tell you? Your insights help build our collective understanding and let others know they're not alone in this struggle. Let me bring this all together. Your nighttime overthinking is not a curse or a character flaw or a sign that something is broken in you. It is your unconscious mind's way of trying to get your attention about things you've been avoiding during your busy, distracted days. Carl Jung devoted his life to understanding this process, and he gave us a framework for working with it rather than against it. The shadow, all those repressed parts of yourself, will demand attention one way or another. The persona, that mask you wear all day, requires so much energy that it eventually has to come off. And the self, your deepest inner wisdom, is constantly trying to guide you toward wholeness and authenticity. The 70% of people who overthink at night are not experiencing a modern epidemic of mental weakness. They are experiencing what happens when we live in a world that demands constant performance, constant connectivity, and constant image management, while providing almost no space for genuine self-reflection and emotional processing. Night becomes the only time the unconscious can break through, and it does so through anxiety and rumination because those are the tools it has available. But you now have different tools. You can journal and externalize those spiraling thoughts. You can dialogue with your anxiety and discover what it's really trying to tell you. You can follow your catastrophic thinking to its logical conclusion and see how distorted it actually is. Most importantly, you can reframe this entire experience. You're not being tortured by your mind for no reason. You're being invited to a deeper relationship with yourself, to bring consciousness to what has been unconscious, to integrate what has been split off. Jung believed that the goal of human psychological development is individuation, becoming fully yourself by integrating all the parts of your psyche into a conscious whole. Your nighttime overthinking, as uncomfortable as it is actually part of this process. It's pushing you toward growth, toward consciousness, toward wholeness. The question is whether you'll fight it or learn from it, whether you'll see it as an enemy or recognize it as a difficult messenger bringing important news. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that can observe your thoughts. And in that space between you and your thoughts lies the possibility of freedom. The next time you find yourself awake at 3 in the morning with your mind racing, remember that you have a choice. You can spiral in the familiar patterns of anxiety, or you can get curious about what your unconscious is trying to tell you. You can prosecute yourself, or you can practice compassion while still listening to the underlying message. You can fight the darkness, or you can learn to see what it's illuminating. Your nighttime mind is not your enemy. It's a part of you that needs integration. And the journey from fragmented anxiety to integrated wholeness, while not easy, is the most meaningful work you can do. Start tonight. Start with curiosity instead of judgment. Start with a journal and a willingness to listen. Start with the understanding that you're not broken. You're becoming whole. And that process, that movement toward integration and authenticity, is what Carl Jung spent his entire life trying to help us achieve. Now it's your turn.